Alrighty, let me explain. There's a very easy and also a very cheesy method to defeating the destroyer at the beginning of hard mode with basically no equipment whatsoever. So, if you don't mind a bit of cheese, well, I can demonstrate on how to, well, get effectively hallowed armor with little to no equipment. All I use in this case is a Sun Fury. I don't really need any equipment whatsoever, and a bunch of dynamite. In order to build this, you need some dungeon brick or chests, as well as some rope, some wood and platforms. That's kind of mostly everything you need. Of course, you can always add bonfires and a few other things, and you will have to survive the hard mode enemies, but this is just going to be mainly for exploration here. So, let's make it daytime real quick. Hopefully not a solar eclipse, so I can actually explain. Alrighty, now, this box here is quite simple. All what I have in here is just two doors. Oh yeah, two doors you need to. Two doors and the nurse above. The nurse is basically just for safety. For the most part, you won't really need her. You can just skip that part entirely. And a little bit of a box to run back and forth in, and that is mainly to begin the fight. I'll explain in just a second once we, well, begin the fight. And here we have some dungeon brick, which if you put dynamite onto a dungeon brick, it explodes, but the dungeon brick stays. Alternatively, what you can do is you can use any kind of material and just put chests on it, and these chests will basically prevent the ground below them from exploding as well. So, that's kind of all you need. Let me just give you a quick demonstration of how to even build this. So, all we need to find is preferably a bit of a flat spot in the world, but it's also not all that necessary. So you have your ground somewhere, and then you just use a rope to get straight up. And when you stop being able to see the ground, well, that's when you can start building your platform for the dynamite. Then you continue using your rope, and about half a screen length further up from the rope, you build your little, let's say, safety box. Now, important, if you're in hard mode, you might be wondering about harpies and wyverns. Harpies can't really enter this box here, outside of specifically two tiles, so once you're inside, you probably want to lock this up so the harpies can't fly inside. And wyverns, while they can show up when you are building this, if you are standing in front of player-placed walls, they will never show up. So, there's that. And that's the quick explanation for the entire thing. Now, let me just go ahead and, well, build this in a suitable location. So first of all, generally speaking, I tend to try and select a location on my map that seems reasonably suitable. In this case, let's say over here, relatively flat ground, or over here, relatively flat ground. Any of these are fine. If you play in a small world, especially in a small world, I guess, it is always a possibility that you are going to be just too high up in the sky and harpies are gonna harass you and wyverns are gonna harass you. That's just gonna be part of the deal. But the short version about the destroyer is, as long as you are high up enough in the air, then you are basically safe from the destroyer. With one possible exception, but I'll explain that in just a moment once we begin the fight. So, we basically just have some place which we call our home. Grab our ropes, and then we go up. So if you have flat ground, all you need to do is about half a screen length up to about here. This would be fine. So this is where I'm going to be placing my dungeon brick, or you could just place any material and chests on it. Now, important to note, don't make this too large, because otherwise the destroyer can use these platforms in order to potentially change its trajectory and actually reach you in your box. So this is about fine, doesn't need to be much larger than this. And then you go about another half a screen up, to about here. This is fine. So this is going to be effectively my floor. I want to be able to see the little platform where it's going to be. And then I'm gonna build my box. I'm just gonna use a random material here. And go about here. It doesn't have to be particularly large. And then the other side. Now, as I have mentioned before, if you set in some background walls, any wall will do. Let's just use this one because I like how it looks. This will prevent wyverns from spawning entirely, as long as you are standing in front of it. And, well, then you kind of want to be able to drop down your dynamite through a crack. For this we're going to use platforms. Just put one platform here. And in order to be able to center ourselves just above this thing, you can either hookshot to the ceiling, you're exactly centered in the tile and dropping dynamite down is easy, or alternatively just put a platform in the middle, hookshot to that, and then you're also centered. Or a platform up here, it really doesn't matter how you do it. Then, what I also did is I made some doors. So we're going to briefly do that as well. And the purpose of these doors is effectively that you can move left and right if you want to. And that is especially important for the beginning of the fight. Now you can add an additional nurse home just above you if you want to. You can add heart lanterns, you can have any form of equipment that helps, with the notable exception of do not use a Spider Queen staff. The Spider Queen staff will hit the destroyer and unleash a lot of probes very quickly, which can easily overwhelm you, especially. The main danger is if the little probes that come from the destroyer come directly from below you. Because while the Sun Fury will protect you very easily from left and right, from below might be a little bit tricky. It usually is still fine, you can't just stay still and it's gonna be okay, but usually the dynamite punches the probes to the left or to the right, so you're for the most part easier and safe. So the Spider Summon stuff is fine, just don't use the Spider Queen so it could hit the destroyer. Further, if you were to, let's say, put the Spider Queen over here, so it doesn't hit the destroyer but hits the little probes instead, it could actually push the probes into your hitbox, so that would also be less than desirable. Of course you would want to have some other equipment and useful items, but this is just as a demonstration as to what you kind of need as a minimum. So let's get this going. Worth noting, even with 0 armor, you survive at least 1 hit, and, well, let's actually get some lighting here real quick, just so we can see what is going to be happening. Alright. So at the very beginning, the most important part to note is you don't need to worry about being too high. The destroyer will always be able to reach you and get to the platform that is about half a screen length below you. You are never going to be too high up for the purpose of the destroyer being able to get to you. It also does not despawn unless it hits daytime. So better be too high up from the ground than too low. If you're too low, you could get snapped in half by the destroyer head. In any case, if the destroyer does reach you up here, it's important to note that the head will most likely kill you straight up, but the body is... you can survive it. It's not pleasant, and especially if the body lingers around, you don't want to keep touching it, but you can survive it. So this is worthy master mode settings, and in fact, because this is a journey world, the difficulty is actually cranked up even higher than you would normally have. So this kind of works on all difficulties. So let's finally summon the destroyer and let's get this started. So what I like doing is I like to sit about in the middle of my box and then I summon the destroyer and check my map. This is fine. Alrighty, let me explain as to why I actually even want to have the ability to walk left and right. Technically, this little box in the center is perfectly fine for me to just sit in and swing my mace. The reason why I do want to have a bit more is at the very beginning. The destroyer can spawn below you, and if it does, it is possible for it to gain enough momentum through the ground or through the air, because far enough away air actually counts as ground for the destroyer. Either way, it can get enough momentum in order to actually hit you. Alrighty, so we just drop some dynamite. But then you have the probes, and I'm just gonna swing my Sun Fury. If you have a stronger Sun Fury that deals more damage, if you have equipment that improves your damage, all of that is quite fine. Technically not necessary, but from here on all we need is a mace that we can swing, and just some dynamite. And that's effectively the entire method right here. You don't really need much of anything else. If you're really fancy, you can go all the way up to the top of the world in order to throw the dynamite down. The distance between your safety box as well as the destroyer being able to get exploded with the dynamite is going to be the exact same. You can only be too low, but you cannot be too high for the strategy up. And that's effectively the entire strategy. If you have any questions, if you have any ideas, requests, or improvement suggestions, feel free to let me know. But this is effectively an easy and cheesy way how to defeat the destroyer. And just kind of to, I suppose, demonstrate that wyverns are not gonna spawn. But harpies might just kind of be really annoying, but as long as you sit in a box here, you're fine. Maybe one more thing. If a little probe comes directly up from below, it will most likely hit you. Sometimes it actually doesn't even do that, because your mace might just bonk it away. But if it's just one lonely probe, you can actually hit your Sun Fury or a mace through the wall somehow, as long as you're close enough to the wall. So if I just attack towards the top, it actually goes towards the bottom, and vice versa, left, right. Not sure why that happens, probably just how the hitboxes end up working, but you can actually bonk a probe out of the way from right below you if desirable. But also, just stand still. Or use the Shield of Cthulhu to bonk into the probes. If you double dash into them, you are also briefly invulnerable, and if you get hit by a laser, that's actually significantly less bad than the probes themselves. So yeah, I'm just going to finish off the destroyer, because might as well show you, and thank you for watching. I always forget something. This method here was not invented by me. I have seen speedrunners use it. I do not know who originally came up with this method of defeating the destroyer. I imagine it might have been multiple people at the same time. I don't actually know, but I just figured this might be a good fit for this little playlist. And one thing I haven't seen people mention so far is that you can effectively be as high up in the sky as you want to be in order to be able to defeat the destroyer this way. It effectively does not matter to be too high, you can only be too low to the ground. That's the one contribution I have to this entire thing. Which also, I actually learned thanks to Ducktem on both Twitch and YouTube. Highly recommend you check them out. They do crazy challenge runs. Among other things, defeating the destroyer with a jousting lance in their melee-only playthrough for the worthy Master Mode Hardcore. It's crazy. I hope you have a nice day.